What if the peace you've been chasing your whole life was never something you had to wait for? Most people live convinced that calm will arrive the day the world finally slows down, the day people become gentler, the day circumstances stop being unfair. But that day almost never comes, and here's the twist nobody tells you. The freedom you're searching for isn't out there in a quieter world. It's inside you, waiting to be built. Every insult that stings, every rejection that lingers, every letdown that replays in your head, none of it actually has power over you unless you let it move in and settle down. Real strength was never about avoiding storms. It's about standing steady while one rages around you. So today we're going to break down exactly how you train your mind to stop being rattled by everything, not by shutting your feelings off, but by building a level of self-awareness so deep that outside noise simply can't touch your peace anymore. This is a path built on discipline, clear thinking, and quiet resilience. Once you stop reacting to every little thing, you start responding with actual clarity. Once you stop chasing everyone's approval, you finally taste real freedom. And once your sense of self stops depending on outside conditions, the world loses its grip on you completely. Here's something worth sitting with. Your biggest battle was never really against rude people, sudden failures, or unfair situations. It's happening somewhere else entirely, inside your own head. Think about how much time people spend trying to control things that were never theirs to control, while the one thing they actually have power over, their own reaction, gets completely ignored. Every burst of anger, every wave of frustration starts with a choice. It might happen in a split second, so fast you barely notice it's a choice at all, but it is one. And this is the real starting point for becoming unshakable, realizing that it's rarely the world itself that causes your suffering, it's how you choose to interpret it. Picture two people hearing the exact same piece of criticism. One gets defensive, stews in anger, and carries that resentment around for days. The other takes it in, sits with it for a moment, and keeps moving through their day in peace. Same words, same moment, completely different outcomes. Why? Because it was never the event controlling them. It was their response, and that's exactly where your power begins. The second you understand that your peace comes from how you respond, not from how someone else behaves, you stop handing your power over to other people. Now, don't confuse this with the idea that strong people never feel pain. That's not wisdom, that's denial. Even the most grounded person still feels disappointment, sadness, fear, frustration, all of it. The difference is they don't become hostages to those feelings. They watch them instead of obeying them. They let emotions drift through like clouds crossing the sky, instead of letting every one of them turn into a permanent storm parked over their life. Think of your mind as a garden. Every single thought you dwell on is a seed you're planting. Keep watering anger, jealousy, insecurity, and resentment, and don't be surprised when those become the very habits that define you. But water patience, awareness, gratitude, and discipline instead, and your inner world stays calm no matter what chaos is happening outside it. Most people only start pulling weeds once the garden's already overrun. The wiser move is paying attention to every seed long before it has the chance to take root. One reason so many people feel constantly bothered comes down to a simple habit: taking everything personally. Someone doesn't reply to a message, and suddenly they've decided they're unwanted. Someone speaks a little sharply, and it feels like a personal attack. Someone else succeeds, and instantly the comparisons start rolling in. But here's the truth: most of what other people do has almost nothing to do with you. People act out of their own fears, their own insecurities, their own history, their own emotional state in that moment. Once you really understand this, you stop dragging around weight that was never yours to carry in the first place. This is where silence becomes one of the most powerful teachers you'll ever have. Not the silence of avoiding people or shutting down, but the kind of silence that lets you watch your own thoughts before jumping to react to them. Right before almost every pointless argument, there's a tiny window where you get to choose, speak, or stay quiet. Right before almost every emotionally driven decision, there's a pause where wisdom actually has a chance to step in. Most people miss that window completely because they are hooked on reacting instantly. But a disciplined mind learns to live inside that pause, using it instead of rushing past it. And here's a shift in thinking that changes everything. Every hard moment you face can become training. A difficult coworker builds your patience. A sudden setback builds your resilience. Criticism builds your humility. Delays build your endurance. Instead of asking why life keeps throwing obstacles at you, start asking what those obstacles are actually teaching you. That one shift in perspective turns suffering into growth almost overnight. You also have to accept something uncomfortable. Some people will misunderstand you no matter what you do. Some will read your silence as weakness. Others will judge choices they don't even understand the reasoning behind. If your happiness depends on getting everyone's approval, you will never, not once, experience real peace. True inner strength means being okay with the fact that not everyone has to agree with your path. You don't have to show up for every argument you're invited to. You don't have to defend yourself against every single opinion thrown your way. Sometimes the real win is simply walking away with your peace still intact. Becoming unbothered works exactly like building muscle, through repetition, not through some overnight transformation. Every time you pick calm over anger, that muscle gets a little stronger. Every time you resist an impulsive reaction, your self-discipline deepens a little more. Every time you let go of something that would have drained your energy, your mind gets a little lighter. String enough of these small daily wins together, and eventually you end up with a character that simply can't be shaken. Here's something else worth clearing up. Reacting emotionally isn't the same thing as being honest. A lot of people assume that expressing every single feeling the moment it hits them is what authenticity means. But real wisdom says otherwise. Not every emotion deserves to be expressed. Some are meant to be observed. Others are meant to be reflected on. A few genuinely deserve action. Learning to tell these apart is one of the clearest signs of emotional maturity you can develop. And don't underestimate this next point. Your attention is one of the most valuable things you own. Wherever your attention goes, your life follows. Keep feeding your mind with insults, gossip, negativity, and comparison, and that becomes your reality. Feed it instead with purpose, discipline, gratitude, and self-improvement, and your entire life starts shifting in that direction. Guard your attention like it matters, because it absolutely determines the quality of everything happening inside you. Notice something about the strongest people you've ever met. They're rarely the loudest ones in the room. They don't need to win arguments or put on emotional displays to prove how solid they are. Their confidence comes from something much quieter, knowing that other people's temporary opinions can never touch their permanent values. They move through life with a kind of quiet certainty, because somewhere along the way they learned that peace is worth more than being right. Storms will keep coming, that's guaranteed. Plans will fall apart, people will let you down, opportunities will slip away when you least expect it. But every single storm eventually passes. That's just how storms work. The real question is whether your mind becomes the storm itself, or whether it stays the mountain, standing unmoved while the clouds roll across its peak. Becoming unbothered was never about life suddenly deciding to stop testing you. It's about your inner foundation becoming so solid that those tests stop deciding the direction your life takes. Every time you show restraint, your character gets stronger. Every conscious breath you take resets your awareness. Every calm response reshapes who you are into someone who simply cannot be controlled by noise, opinions, expectations, or emotional chaos coming from outside. Because real mastery has always started in one place, mastering yourself. Now here's a trap almost everyone falls into at some point, spending an entire lifetime chasing something that can never actually satisfy them, other people's approval. They twist their words to be accepted. They hide who they really are just to dodge criticism. They constantly measure their own worth by how other people react to them. But no amount of validation ever lasts. Today's compliment can turn into tomorrow's criticism without warning. The crowd's applause fades fast, but the peace that comes from respecting yourself, that can stay with you for life. The moment your happiness depends on someone else's opinion, your peace stops being yours. It now belongs to whoever holds the power to approve or reject you. This is exactly why so many people walk around feeling emotionally drained. They wake up every day trying to satisfy expectations that were never truly their own to begin with. They chase compliments to feel valuable, recognition to feel important, acceptance to feel whole. But every time they get these things, the good feeling fades almost instantly, because outside validation can only soothe the ego for a moment. It can't actually heal an insecure mind underneath. A genuinely wise person understands that self-worth has to be built from the inside out. Nobody hands it to you, not friends, not family, not strangers, not society at large. It grows every single time you keep a promise you made to yourself. It grows every time you choose discipline over comfort. It grows every time you stay true to your own principles, even in moments when absolutely nobody is watching. Real confidence doesn't need to be loud because it was never built for an audience. It stays quiet because it's rooted in certainty, not attention. Think about how much energy gets burned trying to control what other people think of you. You can't force someone to understand where you're coming from. You can't make every person appreciate your kindness. You can't guarantee your honesty will always be met with respect. Everyone sees the world through the lens of their own experiences, fears, and beliefs. And sometimes people will misread you simply because they're looking through a completely different window. That misunderstanding was never yours to carry, and a lot of this need for approval actually starts with comparison. You see someone else's success and start wondering why your own journey feels so much slower. You see someone else's confidence and start second, guessing your own abilities. You compare your day 1 with someone else's year 20. But comparison might be the fastest way to lose your peace, because it pulls your focus away from the only life you're actually responsible for improving your own. Picture yourself climbing a mountain while constantly glancing sideways at other climbers. Every second spent watching them is a second not spent watching your own footing. Eventually you stumble, not because the climb itself was too hard, but because your attention was pointed in the wrong direction. Life works exactly the same way. Real progress comes from focusing on your own growth, not from measuring your pace against somebody else's. There's another force feeding this constant need for validation, and it's fear of rejection. Rejection stings because our minds instantly interpret it as proof that we're somehow not enough. But most of the time, rejection is nothing more than incompatibility. Not everyone is meant to understand your purpose. Not everyone is meant to walk alongside you. Some people leave your life not because you did something wrong, but simply because their part in your story has ended. Once you stop fearing rejection, something shifts. You become genuinely free. You speak honestly without getting defensive. You show kindness without expecting anything back. You put in the work without demanding recognition for it. Your actions start being guided by your own values instead of by how other people might react. That's really where emotional independence begins. Silence plays a huge role here too, in breaking free from the pull of constant validation. Every time you resist the urge to explain yourself when it isn't necessary, you build a little more inner confidence. So many people feel they have to justify every decision, defend every choice, respond to every piece of criticism that comes their way. But wisdom says otherwise. Not every opinion deserves a response. Sometimes silence says more than 1,000 carefully chosen words ever could. People who are constantly chasing approval end up emotionally fragile, because their entire mood swings with every compliment and every criticism that comes their way. One kind word makes them feel invincible. One harsh comment wrecks their confidence completely. They end up like leaves being blown around by the wind, drifting wherever public opinion happens to push them next. But a disciplined mind grows more like a tree with deep roots. The wind can shake its branches all at once, but it can never rip out the foundation underneath. So ask yourself something important. Who are you when nobody's watching? That answer tells you everything about your real character. Discipline practiced quietly, in private, is what ends up showing itself as strength in public. Integrity means choosing what's right even when there's no reward waiting for you on the other side. And self-respect grows a little more every time your actions actually match your principles, rather than your desire to be liked. The world right now practically runs on comparison. Every photo, every achievement, every success story out there can become another reason to doubt yourself if you let it. But remember, people generally show off their highlight reel while quietly hiding their struggles behind the scenes. Comparing your everyday reality to someone else's carefully curated best moments will always leave you feeling like you're falling short, even when you're not. So instead of asking whether people admire you, ask yourself whether you admire the person you're becoming. Instead of wondering if others believe in you, ask whether you're keeping the promises you make to yourself. Instead of chasing attention, chase mastery instead, because attention fades fast, but mastery sticks around. The strongest people out there aren't the ones collecting the most praise. They're the ones who keep showing up and doing meaningful work even when nobody's applauding. Their motivation comes from purpose, not popularity, and they understand that the most meaningful work usually happens quietly, long before the world ever notices the results. There will always be people ready to criticize your choices, misread your intentions, or underestimate what you're capable of. Their opinions might be loud, but they don't get to define who you are. Every moment spent trying to win everyone over is a moment stolen from becoming the person you were actually meant to be. Let your actions speak where explanations fall short. Let your discipline answer where arguments would only begin. And let your peace stay untouched by opinions that shift as fast as the seasons change. The more deeply you root your sense of worth inside yourself, the less control the outside world has over your emotions, your confidence, your decisions, and your ability to move forward with calmness, clarity, and steady inner strength. Now let's talk about something that trips a lot of people up: compassion. It's one of the greatest strengths a human being can have, but compassion without boundaries quietly turns into self-destruction. So many people believe that being kind means absorbing everyone else's pain, anger, expectations, and emotional chaos. They carry problems that were never theirs to begin with. They sacrifice their own peace just to avoid disappointing someone else. And slowly, without even noticing, they lose themselves trying to save everybody around them. Real wisdom offers a different path here. You can care deeply about someone without drowning in their storm. You can love people without letting their emotional state become your own. Detachment gets misunderstood a lot. Some people think it means going cold, distant, or indifferent. But genuine detachment isn't the absence of love at all. It's the absence of unhealthy attachment. It means learning to care without clinging, to help without controlling, to give without keeping score on what you'll get back. It lets your heart stay open while your mind stays clear. Picture standing beside a river right after heavy rain. The current is strong, dragging everything downstream with it. If you jump in without any preparation, there's a good chance you get swept away too. But if you stay firmly planted on solid ground, you can reach out and actually help pull someone to safety. Emotional chaos works exactly the same way. You can't genuinely help someone else if you've already lost your own footing first. A lot of conflicts spiral way bigger than they ever needed to, simply because people react emotionally instead of consciously. One sharp word turns into 10, one misunderstanding turns into a broken relationship, one moment of frustration turns into years of resentment. And most of the time, these situations aren't even driven by facts. They're driven by emotions nobody bothered to control. A disciplined person learns to pause before responding, and that pause is exactly where wisdom gets its chance to speak up. Your emotions are valuable, they're messengers worth listening to, but they make terrible leaders. Anger might be telling you a boundary got crossed. Fear might be reminding you to stay cautious. Sadness might be revealing what actually matters to you. But if you let these emotions make every single decision for you, your life turns unpredictable fast. Real wisdom comes from listening to your emotions without handing them the steering wheel. There will always be people who project their own struggles onto you. Someone dealing with insecurity might criticize your confidence. Someone drowning in stress might snap at you for no real reason. Someone who's never found peace within themselves might try to disturb yours instead. If you respond to every single one of these projections, you end up trapped in battles that were never actually yours to fight. Picture the sky during a storm. Dark clouds roll in, thunder cracks, rain pours down hard. But above all of that, the sky itself stays completely untouched. Your own awareness can work the exact same way. Thoughts, emotions, disappointments, frustrations, they can pass through your mind like changing weather. But none of it defines who you are, unless you choose to hold on to it and let it stay. One of the biggest forms of emotional freedom comes from realizing you're not responsible for fixing every single person you meet. You can guide someone, encourage someone, support someone, but you cannot force another person to change. Real transformation always starts with that person's own willingness. Trying to carry someone else's entire emotional burden on your own shoulders usually just leaves both of you exhausted in the end. So many people stay stuck in relationships that constantly drain them simply because they mistake suffering for loyalty. They convince themselves that enduring endless disrespect somehow proves their love. They put up with repeated dishonesty because they're afraid of being alone. They ignore their own gut instincts, hoping people will eventually turn into who they wish they were. But real wisdom reminds us of something important. Love should never require giving up your self-respect. Boundaries aren't walls built to shut people out. They're more like doors, letting healthy relationships in while keeping unnecessary harm away from your peace. Every healthy relationship naturally respects those boundaries, and the people who get angry the moment you set a limit, they were usually the ones benefiting from you never having one in the first place. Detachment also means letting go of the need to control every outcome. So many people suffer simply because reality refuses to follow their plans exactly. They get frustrated the moment life unfolds differently than expected. But life has always been uncertain. That's never going to change. The tighter you grip every outcome, the more anxiety you end up creating for yourself. A calmer approach is giving your best effort while accepting that not everything falls within your control. This doesn't mean becoming passive or giving up. It means understanding the real difference between effort and attachment. You work hard and stay dedicated, but you don't tie your entire identity to the result. You love people sincerely, but you don't lose yourself if someone decides to walk away. You keep chasing your purpose, but you stay peaceful even when the road gets rough. Take a moment to look at nature. A tree doesn't refuse to grow just because one season turned out harsh. It bends with the wind, but keeps its roots firmly in the ground. Rivers keep flowing around obstacles instead of fighting them. Mountains stand quietly through every storm without ever needing to prove how strong they are. Nature teaches us something important here. Resilience was never about resisting change. It's about staying grounded while change happens all around you. Daily moments of stillness build this same ability inside you. When you sit quietly and simply watch your own thoughts, you start noticing how fast emotions come and go. A feeling that seems overwhelming today might lose all its power by tomorrow, as long as you stop feeding it constant attention. You start to discover that awareness creates real space between you and your reactions, and as that space grows, so does your freedom. Someone's criticism stops controlling your mood. Unexpected setbacks stop wrecking your confidence. Emotional drama stops demanding a seat at your table. You start choosing your responses instead of reacting on autopilot. This quiet discipline slowly reshapes your character over time. The strongest people out there aren't the ones who never go through emotional storms. They're the ones who simply refuse to become the storm themselves. Their calm isn't weakness. It's the result of years spent training their mind to stay steady while everything around them feels uncertain. They understand something important. Peace is protected not by controlling the world, but by mastering yourself. When you learn to detach from emotional chaos without losing your compassion, you become something rare, a source of stability in an unstable world. You offer kindness without giving up your peace. You extend understanding without absorbing suffering that was never yours. And you walk through every challenge with a heart that stays open, a mind that stays clear, and a spirit that can't be shaken by the emotional turbulence happening around it. Discipline itself often gets pictured as something loud and demanding, a life packed with non-stop effort, rigid routines, constant struggle. But the deepest kind of discipline is actually quiet. It gets built in moments nobody else ever sees. It grows in the early morning hours when you choose awareness over distraction. It develops in the small moments when you resist the urge to react, complain, or chase instant comfort. The strongest people were rarely shaped by dramatic events. They were shaped by small, consistent practices, repeated day after day after day. If you truly want to become unbothered, you first have to build a daily practice that strengthens your inner world before you ever face the outer one. Most people start their day by immediately opening themselves up to the noise of the world, checking messages, scrolling social media, scanning headlines and opinions and demands before they even listen to their own thoughts. Before the sun's fully up, their mind already belongs to everyone else. Then they wonder why they feel anxious, scattered, and emotionally worn out by mid-morning. The problem was never the world itself. It's letting the world into your mind before you've built your own center first. Imagine starting every morning in silence instead. No rush, no unnecessary conversation, no endless scrolling, just a few minutes sitting quietly with yourself. At first, this will feel uncomfortable. because the mind has grown addicted to constant stimulation. Thoughts will race, old worries will resurface, plans, regrets, and distractions will all compete for your attention. But that discomfort is exactly why the practice matters. You're not trying to stop your thoughts entirely. You're training yourself to watch them without instantly chasing after every single one. Your mind is a lot like a restless horse. Left untrained, it runs wherever it wants, chasing every sound and every flicker of movement. But with patient guidance, it gradually learns to stay steady. Your attention works the exact same way. Every time you gently pull your focus back to the present moment, you strengthen your ability to stay calm under pressure. Stillness isn't laziness, it's preparation. An archer never releases the arrow without becoming completely steady first. A musician never performs beautifully without countless hours of quiet practice behind closed doors. Emotional mastery works the same way. It's built long before the hard moments ever show up, forged in the ordinary hours when you deliberately train your awareness. Daily reflection is another powerful tool here. At the end of each day, instead of judging yourself harshly, quietly ask a few honest questions. Where did I react instead of respond today? What disturbed my peace? What lesson was hiding inside that experience? How could I handle it with more wisdom tomorrow? Questions like these slowly turn your mistakes into teachers instead of burdens you keep carrying. A lot of people chase motivation, believing motivation is what creates discipline. In reality, it works the other way around. Discipline creates motivation. Your feelings shift constantly from one day to the next. Some mornings you'll feel inspired, others you won't. If your actions only happen when you feel like it, your progress will always stay inconsistent. Disciplined people act from purpose, not mood. Understanding that consistency matters far more than any burst of temporary excitement. Growth has never come from constant comfort, it comes from resistance, patiently endured. Think about bamboo. For years after it's planted, almost nothing visible happens above ground. Most people would assume nothing's growing at all, but underground an enormous root system is quietly forming. Only once those roots are strong enough does the rapid growth finally happen. Your own daily practice works exactly the same way. Results might not show up right away, but every bit of discipline is strengthening a foundation nobody can see yet. As this practice continues, you'll start noticing changes in yourself that are hard to explain. Situations that once triggered anger stop bothering you. Delays turn into chances to practice patience. Criticism becomes useful information instead of a personal attack. Your calm eventually stops being something you forced. It becomes part of who you are. So here's the real takeaway. Becoming unbothered was never about switching off your emotions. It's about becoming unshakable. Life will keep testing your patience, challenging your beliefs, throwing obstacles in your way, and none of it has power over your inner world unless you hand that power over yourself. The strength you've been searching for has never been hidden somewhere out there. It's been waiting inside you the whole time, growing every time you stayed calm when anger came knocking, every time you chose silence over your ego's demands, every time you protected your peace instead of proving a point. If this resonated with you even a little, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this with someone who needs to hear it today. Keep building your own path toward self-mastery, because in the end, real power was never about controlling the world around you. It's about mastering the world within you.